Hey, how's it going? How you doing? How have you been? And welcome to my video about the best shroom spots and strategies in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I'll be showing you how to do some of the more advanced shroom cuts and strategies that will really help when bagging and trying to catch up and can sometimes even win you the whole race. So, let's see how to do them. Starting off with RMC. So RMC is a pretty hard bagger, so I'll be showing you how to do the glider cut and where best to use your golden mushroom to make the most use of it. Starting with the glider cut. So, do a quick right slide into a trick off the ramp off the anti-gravity section and start a right drift and charge a mini turbo. It's important you don't charge a super mini turbo because it'll make you lose all your momentum in the next part. Release your mini turbo, then start a left soft drift to charge a mini turbo and hold it into the off-road. And just as you hit the grass, use your shroom and hold wide and adjust yourself so that you go in between these two trees. Then, as your boost is running out, release your super mini turbo into a quick left hop onto the ramp and trick off the ramp. Hold back initially, then glide a little to the left to adjust yourself to land on these blocks. And as you land, start a left drift and hold it off the blocks and release your super mini turbo once you're back on the track. And there you go, that's how you do the RMC glider cut. Now while this method is actually slightly slower than staying on the main path, the reason it's useful is because you're completely off the main part of the track for a good bit of time, and there's next to no chance of getting hit when performing it. But now, let's see the golden mushroom strategy. Now this one's pretty easy. So, position yourself toward the middle of the ramp and do a right slide into a trick off the ramp to land in the off-road. Then as you're about to land into the grass, start using your golden and start a right drift to get around this corner. Then start a left drift to get around the second corner. Then proceed to go straight and through the off-road, and as you're approaching the final shortcut, start a left soft drift just before these tires. And your golden will run out just in time to clear the final shortcut and release your super mini turbo on the straightaway for the finish line. And there you go, those are the best shroom spots on RMC. Now, let's move on to Sydney Sprint. So, there are two important shroom spots on Sydney, the first one being the one between the stones, and the second one is the grass cut just before the glider. Now let's see how to do them. So, after coming around this left turn, release your mini turbo into a right soft drift and release another mini turbo into a left hop into another right drift around this corner to release one more mini turbo. Then, do a left hop into a left drift and hold wide to adjust so that you're just to the right of this pole. Then, as you hit the grass, use your shroom and hold wide at first so that you don't hit the wall. Then soft drift as you pass the first stone to charge a super mini turbo. Then hold wide after passing the second stone. And as your shroom boost is about to run out, release your super mini turbo into a right hop to get back onto the track. And there you go, that's how you perform the first shortcut with one shroom. Now for the second one. So, after tricking off the final ramp, do a right hop or slide into a left soft drift to charge a quick mini turbo and release it into a right hop into a right drift. Soft drift for half a second, then start holding wide so that you're going for this hard incline on the track. Hold wide the entire time so that you get some air off the incline. Then as you're about to land on the grass, use your shroom and soft drift through the grass. And you can either perform a low glider or let the glider release your SMT for you. But there you go, that's how you do both the shroom cuts on Sydney Sprint. Now both of them can be a little tricky because with the stone cut, it's easy to use your shroom too late and lose your drift in the grass. And with the cut before the glider, it can be hard to get the necessary airtime into the grass, but both of them are still super useful. But now let's move on to DK Jungle. Now the DK Jungle shroom cut pretty much has the same strategy as the second cut of Sydney Sprint, but let's see how to do it. Just before getting off the bridge, start a right soft drift and release your mini turbo around the corner. Then, start a left soft drift and fully hold it so that you're going towards this incline on the track. Let yourself go airborne, and as you're about to land in the grass, use your shroom and hold wide the rest of the time. Then shortly after getting back on the track, release your super mini turbo into a right hop to realign for the ramps. And that's it. That's how you perform the DK Jungle shroom cut. I know it may sound a bit complicated, but it's actually a lot easier than you think. Just make sure to aim for the incline so that you get the airtime needed. But now let's move on to London Loop. Now the London Loop shortcut is pretty tricky to perform with one shroom, but I'll show you the strategy to do it. So as you're approaching the grass section, perform a left hop into a right drift and soft drift initially. Then hold wide to position yourself behind these white lines. Then release your mini turbo just before passing the white lines and hop into the grass, then perform 4 to 5 hops. And as you're approaching this yellow flower, use your shroom and start a right drift and soft drift initially, then hold wide to not hit the wall. And as you're approaching the turn, fully soft drift and release your super mini turbo into a left hop to realign. And there you go, that's how you perform the London Loop shortcut with one shroom. Now I know it still looks goofy to have to hop through the grass like that, but the reason you actually want to release your mini turbo early is because you want the boost from your mini turbo to run out as you hit the grass. because if you hit the grass and it's still active, you'll lose even more momentum and have to hop much more in order to make it through. So just remember to release your mini turbo early and you should be good. Now let's move on to Grumble Volcano. Now there are two cuts on Grumble Volcano that I'll be showing you, and that is the tree cut, which you can perform on all 3 laps, and the final ramp cut on lap 3. So let's get into it. After going off the glider, fly slightly to the right toward the boost panel. Land just before the boost panel, and as you're about to go off it, start a right drift and hold wide off the boost panel. And then as you land, start soft drifting. Then right as you pass this tree, use your shroom right before this patch of off-road, and as you're going through, you mainly want to hold wide, but you may have to wiggle drift a bit to adjust yourself to not hit the tree. Then as you're about to go off the ledge, release your UMT or SMT into a left hop, and that will give you enough air to make it back onto the track. And that's how you perform the tree cut. Now this one is pretty tricky to learn initially, but here is the starting patch of off-road you want to aim for when using your shroom. Now let's see how to do the final cut. So, as you're approaching this turn, start a left soft drift and release your mini turbo around the corner, and you should be in a near straight line for the ramp. Drive straight, and as you're about to go into the off-road, start a right drift and use your shroom and hold wide off the ramp. Then start soft drifting while in the air to charge a super mini turbo, and once landing, release it into a trick off the ramp. And there you go, that's how you do both the shroom cuts on Grumble Volcano. Now let's move on to Mushroom Gorge. Now we all know the gap cut on Mushroom Gorge, and it's easily one of, if not my favorite shortcuts to pull off in the game, because it is so satisfying and can get you from a low spot into the top 3. And instead of just showing you how to do the normal gap cut, I'll be showing you how to do the fence cut. So let's get into it. So after tricking out this green shroom, do a left drift off the red mushroom to charge up mini turbo. Then release it just before hitting the second red shroom to super bounce off of it. Then land into a left soft drift and fully soft drift until you're about to pass this coin. Once you're about to pass it, use your shroom and neutral drift, and as your wheels go into the patch of grass, release your mini turbo and neutral hop. And this should give you enough air to clear the fence and make it back onto the track. And there you go, that's how you do the Mushroom Gorge fence cut. Now this one is pretty intimidating to pull off initially, but the biggest tips I have is to not use your shroom too early, and to hop slightly later than you think you should, because even if you hop slightly before the patch of grass, you'll get no air and just fall off. So just remember to use your shroom as you're passing that coin, neutral drift, and release your mini turbo and hop once your car is in the patch of grass, and you should get it. Now let's move on to the glider cuts. Starting off with Mario Kart Stadium. Now Mario Kart Stadium's glider is super easy to pull off, so let's just get into it. After coming around the hard left turn, drive straight and position yourself to the left so that you're tricking out of this arrow on the glider panel. Trick off the panel and hold back on the stick and use your first shroom. Keep holding back, and as you're approaching the helicopter, use your second shroom and hold back and slightly left for the turn. Then once you're about to pass the pipes, use your final shroom while still holding back and left, and that will give you enough speed and air to glide through the finish line. You can also do it with one shroom, and the setup is the exact same, except you use your shroom just before passing the helicopter. Now while this cut is cool, the real reason it shines is because of the motion glider you can perform with it. So let's see how to do that. After coming around the hard left turn, position yourself to the left again, and as you're approaching the glider, press plus Y plus to activate motion controls. Then trick off the panel and hold back on the stick and use your first shroom. Then as you pass the helicopter and are about to go around the left turn, use your second shroom and start holding back and left and tilt your controller hard left to motion. Then use your final shroom as you're about to pass the pipes, and this will give you tons of speed to pass the finish line. And bam, that's how you perform the glider cut normally and with motion glider. Now motion gliding can be kind of tricky to learn and figure out on your first couple of tries, especially because the axis you tilt your controller on can feel inconsistent sometimes. But I highly recommend learning it because it can gain you so many spots in a lap 3 situation. But now let's move on to Coconut Mall. So Coconut Mall's glider cut is pretty easy as well, but of course it's most effective when you motion glide. But let's see the normal version first. After coming around this left turn, release your super mini turbo and go straight so that you take the top path. Then start a right drift just before the boost panel and soft drift where you can, and release either a mini turbo or a super mini turbo. Then shortly after going off the second boost panel, start a left soft drift, and as you're about to go off the glider, hold wide and let the glider release your mini turbo for you. Then hold back and slightly right and use your first shroom. Then as you're approaching the turn, use your second shroom and glide down until you land back on the track. Now let's see how to do the motion glider version. So, after coming around the left turn, release your super mini turbo, then press plus Y plus to activate motion controls. Then start a right drift just before the boost panel and release a mini turbo just before the second boost panel. Then start a left soft drift after the second boost panel to charge a mini turbo. And as you're about to go off the glider, hold wide and let the glider release your mini turbo for you. And start holding back and slightly right and use your first shroom. Then as you're approaching the right turn, use your second shroom and tilt hard right with your controller to motion. Then use your final shroom once you're around the corner and land back on the track. And there you go, that's how you perform the motion glider on Coconut Mall. The biggest tip I have is to not motion too early because it's easy to tilt your controller too early and get caught on this wall right here. But now let's move on to the final shortcut on Dolphin Shoals. Now Dolphin Shoals is easily my favorite glider cut to perform because if people don't know how to do it, you can pass so many people on lap 3 with it. So let's get into it. After coming around the long right turn, release your Ultra Mini Turbo and trick off the ramp and start a right drift and hold it off the glider. And hold back and slightly left. Then as you're passing this rock on the right, use your first shroom and hold left a little bit further. And as you're about to go into the shadow, use your second shroom. Then use your final shroom just as you're passing this little rock on the left and dive down. And there you go, that's how you perform the Dolphin Shoals glider cut. Now of course, you can motion glide as well, however I don't usually motion glide on this track, but I'll show you how to do it anyways. So, after tricking off the eel, you want to press plus Y plus to activate motion controls as you're coming down from the eel. Then trick off the ramp and charge an Ultra Mini Turbo around the long right turn. Release it into a trick off the ramp and land into a right drift and hold it off the glider. Then use your first shroom as you're passing this rock on the right. Then as you use your second shroom just before entering the shadow, tilt your controller hard left to motion. And use your final shroom just as you're about to pass the little rock. And that's how you do the glider cut on Dolphin Shoals with motion and regularly. But yeah, those are some of the most useful shroom spots and strategies in 150cc on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I hope you found it helpful, and if there's anything else you'd like me to cover, just let me know down below. Either way, thanks for watching, and as always, Godspeed.